Alright class, this is Mrs. Alberg, and I am going to be going over how to multiply polynomials using generic rectangles with you. You should have a worksheet that has these examples on it, and you should be following along with me in this video on your paper. Make sure to pause this video whenever you need to write something down, and then go ahead and play and just continue to do that. So let's just go ahead and look at the first example to start. Now for example 1, what we're doing is multiplying 2x plus 5 times x plus 3. You can see that I already set up our generic rectangle. That rectangle split into 4 pieces. And along the bottom, you can see that I listed out the terms 2x and plus 5. And going up the side, I listed out the terms x and plus 3. So those are our 2 sets of parentheses. Now remember that you can do those in either order. So the 2x plus 5 could have been along this side instead, and the x plus 3 could have been along the bottom. Now that we have those listed out, we are going to go ahead and get the insides of each box. Now remember, to get the insides, we are going to multiply. The first thing I'm going to do is start in the bottom left-hand corner and multiply 2x times x. Now when I multiply those together, first I'm going to multiply the numbers in front of the variables. 2 times 1, remember that's like 1x, would be 2. And x times x would be x squared. So now if we go through, we'll do the same thing again, only we're going to multiply the 2x times the 3 to get the top box. Now this one's a little bit easier because we'll just multiply 2 times 3 and get 6x. Now we'll go to the second column and do the same thing. We'll start with the 5, and we're going to multiply 5 times x. When I multiply 5 times x, I get 5x. And finally, once again, we'll multiply the 5 times 3, and 5 times 3 is 15. Now, don't forget that this isn't the final step. We still have to write down the final answer here by combining like terms. Across the diagonal here, I see some like terms. I see 5x and 6x, which would total to be 11x. So the final answer here is going to be the 2x squared, 11 x's, and 15 1's. Remember, if you're not sure where that 11x came from, it's where we took the 6x with the 5x. And so we combine the 6x and the 5x together to make the 11x. And so that would be our final answer when we're multiplying. Let's go ahead now and move on to example 2. Once again, we're multiplying x plus y times x plus 2. You can see that this time I put the first one, the x plus y, along the left side and the x plus 2 along the bottom. Again, it doesn't matter the order there. You can do them in either order. What I'd like you to do right now is pause your video and try to fill in the insides of the rectangle. So pause that video and see if you can do the multiplying to get the insides. When you're done, press play and we'll check to see if you did it right. Alright, so go ahead and check the insides of your rectangle. You should have came up with an x squared in the bottom left-hand corner, an xy above that, a 2x in the bottom right, and a 2y above that. Now when I'm looking at this rectangle, I'm trying to find like terms, and I don't see any like terms that are the same. So in this case, we're just going to list out the answer as is, and these could be in any order. So we're just going to end up with an x squared, an xy, a 2x, and a 2y. And that's the product of x plus y times x plus 2. Let's go on to example 3. In example 3, we're multiplying, and notice that I have x plus 9, which has 2 pieces, and then x squared minus 3x plus 5 has 3 pieces. So notice now that my rectangle is actually split into a total of 6 boxes, but we go through the same process as before. So once again, let's go through the multiplying. Now this gets a little trickier in this bottom left-hand corner because now I have an x squared times an x, and that actually turns into an x cubed. I have 9 times x squared, which is 9x squared. Now we'll go to the middle column, so now we're using that negative 3x. And notice I'm going to put the negative with that 3x. So negative 3x times x is negative 3x squared. And negative 3x times 9 is negative 27x. 5 times x is 5x, and 5 times 9 is 45. Now, you have two options here. You could do your combining before you write the final answer. You could also list out everything you have and then combine like terms. So if you listed out everything you have, you might say x cubed, 9x squared, minus 3x squared, minus 27x, plus 5x, plus 45. That's if I list out all those boxes. You might also have just noticed right away that you have the x squareds there that are going to be like terms. And then you also have these x's that are going to be like terms. And so either way, you should end up saying, you know what, 9x squared and negative 3x squared leaves me with 6x squared. And negative 27x plus 5x leaves me with negative 22x. And I still have the 45. And so there we go to get our final answer. Now, for this last example, I'm going to tell you about something called FOIL. Now, if you really like the rectangle, if you are fine with multiplying with the rectangle and you understand it, then what I want you to do right now is pause your video, multiply with this rectangle, and then go ahead and check your answer in the end. So just fast forward the video to get to the answer. Now, if you like the rectangle and you're going to use that, let me just help you really quick set it up so you can pause the video and continue. I'm going to go ahead and take that 3x minus 2, and I'm going to write it along the bottom, the 4x plus 5 along the top, and now I'm going to multiply and find the insides. So if you are content with the rectangle and you know what you're doing, then you go ahead, pause your video, and you multiply with that rectangle, and then fast forward and check the answer. If you are not happy with the rectangle and you want to learn a different option, then you can go ahead and watch just a couple more minutes. Now, we can take this idea of the distributive property and we could also multiply doing the same thing with the distributive property. So what that would mean is to start with that 3x and first multiply it to the front term there, 4x. So when I multiply 3x with 4x, I get 12x squared. The reason this idea is called FOIL is because we just started with multiplying our first terms together. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take that 3x, and once again, I'm going to distribute it this time to the 5. When I do that, we get 15x. You can see the 3x and the 5, those are on the outsides, so we call that the outside terms, and we multiplied those together. Now we move on to the negative 2, and I'm going to multiply negative 2 with the 4x, and notice that's the inside, so that's where that I comes from. And we get negative 8x. And finally, I'm going to take that negative 2 and I'm going to multiply it with the 5, and I get negative 10. And those are the last terms, so that's where that L came from. Now, when you combine the things that are the same in the end, so you'd still have to go through and do your combining, you end up with 12x squared, 7x minus 10, which would be the final answer. Now, really quickly, you can see that's exactly what we do in the rectangle. When we multiply the 4x and the 3x to get the 12x squared, that's those first terms. The 15x, that's those outside terms. The negative 8x is the inside, and the negative 10 is the last. You can see that those two do the same exact thing. You're going to end up with the same answer in the end. It's just another way to do it. So what I'd like you to do now is to take the rest of the class time to flip your worksheet over, and you are going to be working on the questions on the back. Now, one hint I'm going to give you when you deal with number 18, for all of those you're going to want to draw the rectangles and do your multiplying, or just the distributive property. Numbers 1 through 4 are just the plain old distributive property like we talked about on Monday. The rest of them you'll use rectangles. But when you get to question 18 and you have that negative 2 in the front, start with just distributing the -2 to the first parentheses. Once you do that, then use your rectangle and multiply those other two together. The only other hint I'm going to give you is on question number 13. When you multiply 3x plus 7 squared, remember that means to multiply 3x plus 7 times 3x plus 7. So make sure that you use a rectangle there to multiply those. Otherwise, this worksheet is your classwork, and whatever you don't finish in class will be your homework. And then we will see you on Thursday.